and to honor the fallen heroes that we've lost over the past year.
That's right, Tom. And joining us to discuss is National Vice President of the Fraternal Order of Police, Joe Gamaldi. Joe, good morning and welcome to Wake Up America Weekend.
Morning. Thanks for having me on.
Joe, of course, now we just watched this video showing the realities and dangers of being a police officer. What challenges are officers facing today?
Well, we have an awful lot of challenges facing our profession right now. Our law enforcement in general is just in complete crisis. Retirements are up 45%, resignations are up 20%. Our recruitment is completely tanking. And thanks to the woke agenda of politicians and rogue DAs and activist judges, we have criminals that are committing crimes and being let right back out on the street. Bail reform has been an unmitigated disaster. In Harris County, the third largest county in this country, they spent $100 million only to see 80% of people not show up to their court dates and reoffend. We have rogue DAs who are just refusing to prosecute people now, including people that are assaulting police officers. And that's why we've called on Congress to pass the Protect and Serve Act, which would make it a federal crime to knowingly assault a police officer, because we just can't trust the DAs to actually do their jobs. And it's making our job that much more difficult.
Yeah, Joe, there have been a lot of concerns that police forces, especially in the large cities where we're seeing the most violence, that they're undermanned. And I was once told by a senior police officer that if you're undermanned by even 10%, that can completely decimate the effectiveness of a police department. How do we turn that around?
Well, I think it starts with everyone condemning the violence against law enforcement and stop denigrating and demonizing law enforcement like everybody has for the last 10 years. I mean, here's a novel concept. Why don't we support the hardworking men and women of law enforcement and put their lives on the line every single day? And you know what? It can start today. We have 563 officers that fell in 2021, making the ultimate sacrifice. Their names are added to that memorial out there, and we're going to honor them. But we really need to talk about just how bad the violence is in this country against law enforcement. In 2021, it was the highest year for intentional homicides of police officers in 20 years. And we are not slowing down in 2022. We've already had 132 police officers shot in this country. That's a 38% increase over last year's historic numbers. Ambush attacks are up 30%. I mean, it is not hyperbole for me to say. We are going to work every day with a target on our back. We're being hunted down in these streets. And at the same time, we have politicians and academics trying to convince the public that there's no war on cops. Well, I've got a message for you. Why don't you come and sit your ass next to me in a patrol car? I'll show you just how dangerous it is. And you tell me that there's no war on cops in this country.
You know, Joe, the numbers there say yourself, and you can obviously see the passion behind what you're saying here. You're involved with this deeply. One of the things that we've seen is President Biden said in the State of the Union to fund the police, and some cities like New York are electing leaders who seem to be more pro-police here. I mean, they kind of went back on this whole defund the police. Now we're seeing them talk about bringing back police. I know at the end of the day, if something happens, I'm going to call a police officer over. Are you seeing any results from this?
Well, I think what you're really seeing is the public is waking up to just how bad these politicians are as far as treating police officers. I mean, a recent Gallup poll said that 80% of Americans are worried about crime in this country, and they're right. Because in 2021, it was the deadliest year for our homicide rate in over 20 years in this country. We had 16 American cities experience their highest murder rate in recorded history. The public is not stupid. They know who was calling to defund the police, and they're tired of it. And I think you're going to see it in the midterm elections, regardless of whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you're not supporting law enforcement, if you're not standing on a bedrock platform of law and order, the voters are going to vote you out.
You know, Joe, I can totally understand how you got elected the national vice president for the FOP. You're a tremendous spokesperson and for police departments and for cops. But you brought this up earlier. The academics and a lot of the left-wing politicians and activists are really the ones who are setting the narrative. They're really the ones who are doing the talking. And a lot of cops, they say, look, we're cops, even senior leaders, we're not allowed to talk to the press. We're not allowed to push back against the narrative. Is that something that needs to change, where more police officers, departments, more chiefs of police push back against the left-wing narrative and a lot of the misinformation that's out there about policing and cops?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I don't know how you can consider yourself a leader in law enforcement if you're not speaking out against the false narratives, if you're not speaking out against the harmful rhetoric that is towards us, because you're seeing what's happening. There's increased violence against us over the last several years, and it just happens to coincide with the anti-police rhetoric that we continue to see. So if you're a leader in law enforcement, you better get off your ass, and you better fight for the hardworking men and women of law enforcement. And if you are a politician, I don't care if it's in the highest levels of government, right down to the local levels, you need to condemn all violence against law enforcement. The amount of officers that are being shot on these streets right now is a complete stain on our society. We shouldn't be embarrassed that it's happening, and we should hold people accountable for their actions. And yeah, I'm talking to these rogue DAs. I'm talking to Larry Krasner and Marilyn Mosby and Kim Fox. They should be throwing the book at anybody that commits a crime with a firearm, especially when they're shooting police officers.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Joe Gamaldi. Appreciate you being here. Keep up the great work, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Coming up this half hour,